All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jamal Malik. I am so excited to be here with you today with two of my very, very good friends talking about a topic that's very, very near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about analyzing 10Ks and developing a benefits dependency network. I'd like to quickly just start by thanking my co-hosts, Eddie Clark and Golden Folz, for joining us. Thank you guys for being here today. So let me quickly just start by introducing myself, and I'll have Eddie and Gordon do the same. So again, as I mentioned, my name is Jamal Malik. I am a managing partner and founder of Sales Advantage. I have about 20 years of experience in the technology business. Before working or starting Sales Advantage, I was at Microsoft focusing on some fairly large global sales culture change initiatives. I developed the Microsoft MSP sales process and the consumption process as well. And so with that, Eddie, if you could, please give us an intro.
Thank you, Jamal and Gordon. Good to be here with you today. My name is Edward Clark, better known as Eddie. I'm probably a 35-year veteran in the IT world. I currently am a partner and Azure Practice Lead for IBM in the distribution space, which is retail and consumer goods, as well as travel and transportation and consumer packaged goods. So I'm focused in on that retail space. Prior to that, I was working with Avanade / Accenture for a couple years, working on Azure in that space as well. And then I am a Microsoft alum, spent 15 years at Microsoft, working in the Azure space, and working in the digital advisory space as well. And then began my career at Allstate Insurance so many years ago. So glad to be here with you. Over to you, Gordon.
Appreciate it.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gordon Folz. I'm Vice President of Sales for an SAP partner, and we provide digital transformation services for our clients. But I've been in the IT sales and delivery area for over 20 years. And the objective that I look at when I deal with my clients is how do I add value that's meaningful to you today, and making sure that I take something that's complex and put it in a framework in a way so that the client can consume it in a way that they see value and benefits at the end of the day. So I'm looking forward to talking with you today about this interesting topic, and something that I'm passionate about, and I think adds a lot of value to the client.
Perfect. And, so one of the things that I want to do actually is start off with a quick story, and that is how we all met. And so long time ago, in a previous career, I was actually studying architecture certification, and I was told to go see Mr. Edward Clark as the SME around business strategy analysis. And Eddie, actually, as humble as he is and as knowledgeable as he is, exposed me to the Benefits Dependency Network built by Cranefield for the very first time. And it's something that absolutely, it changed my life. And I don't want to sound like I'm over exaggerating, but absolutely, it put me on a course that really led me to where I am today. I use it so much. And some years later, Gordon and I worked together. Gordon reported to me as a sales executive when I was a VP of sales at a company. And one of the things that, again, I brought to the organization was this hyper focus around understanding customer priorities. And I taught Gordon how to develop a benefits dependency network as well. And one of the things that always struck out about Gordon to me was just how quickly he was able to pick it up and apply it in a sales capacity. And so I want to kind of just start off by sharing that story. I just think it's amazing to see how Eddie's impact had an impact on me, and then obviously how it's gotten Gordon. I would love to see this continue to grow. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, what I'd also like to do is just quickly talk about Sales Advantage, the business that I started a few years ago. Our focus is to elevate relationships with business decision makers. Okay, that's our primary goal. And the way we achieve that is by providing deep business level insights, leveraging machine learning and AI connected to our clients' offerings. And we'll talk more about how we achieve that a little bit later. But the most important thing here, though, is that when we talk about understanding and prioritizing or hyper-focusing around our customer priorities, we also want to create a shared understanding around those priorities between sales, marketing, service and support teams, and overall make it a very easy way or repeatable way for engaging with customers around their needs. The things we want to focus on, again, is help build rapid credibility with BDMs. We want to help accelerate new customer acquisition. We want to expand reach into existing customers. And we also want to reduce churn and increase the adoption of products. And so with that, what I want to do, maybe kind of just take it over for a little bit to maybe Gordon and Eddie here. Gordon, who do you think the BDN or this presentation that we're making is for specifically?
Yeah, so the people that I deal with are business people. Even though I sell IT services and solutions, if I start with the business person and try to make sure that I'm meeting their objectives on what their challenges are for the given quarter or year, then I have a means to be able to put it in their vernacular, put it in their language for their particular, because every company has a culture and has a vernacular of how they interact with themselves, which may or may not be different. It may be industry specific, it may be company specific. So the BDN allows me to be able to phrase it in such a way so that I'm connecting the value that I'm bringing to the table with what they're looking for. So I help. My job as VP of Sales is to remove the friction from my salespeople as they go and talk to clients, and then also the solution advisors and architects that are responsible for framing up this conversation with these clients in such a way that it allows them to be able to see that we can deliver as they have needs within their organization, both short-term, immediate needs, as well as out 3 to 5 years in the future.
Right. Yeah. And the thing that I'll just add to here is that in addition to sales teams, this is also really beneficial for customer success teams as well, because customer success teams are also trying to do everything you talked about, right? As well as find scenarios to help drive the adoption of the products and services that a customer already purchased. Now, another, I would say, group we're not going to touch on too much, but just want to call out our product marketing teams and industry marketing teams as well. So doing this level of research is important to those individuals, because as you do that for multiple accounts or customers within the subvertical, it allows you to surface trends that you can then use to build white papers, content for webinars, ads, and other contact messaging as well. And so, Gordon, I think, we talk a lot about the amount of effort this makes, or this takes to actually put together, but can you take a second and just talk about why you think it's important for a seller to read an annual report and develop a benefits dependency network?
Yeah, so because my background being accounting and finance, I kind of bring a different kind of perspective, and that's the reason why I was able to kind of latch on to the process a little more effectively than maybe a typical salesperson might. But when you sit down with a client, if you have not done your research and understand that client's business drivers from from their point of view, then you're going to be talking around in circles. It's kind of like a blind man trying to describe an elephant to another blind man. It doesn't, it won't match. So being able to have that perspective as far as what the executives of that company are telling Wall Street or telling the market or telling their customers. And if you can align yourself with them, then it's going to resonate and catch their attention so much quicker than if you just try to grope around trying to sell them something that may or may not meet their needs. So this is extremely valuable and kind of accelerates the whole process.
Right. And at the end of the day, it's funny, right? Like the information is there. However, so few people actually take the time to read an annual report of one of their customers. And, obviously we talked about why that being, every seller feels like their time is incredibly pressed. Maybe you have multiple accounts, right, that you're managing. And so it's difficult to dive deep in any one. What are your thoughts around, the naysayers, the ones that feel like, I'm just going to go in there and have a conversation without doing this homework first?
Yeah, it gets to a point where they're really single threaded. And so if that salesperson goes in and says, well, what about this? And the client goes, no, I don't need that. You're dead. You're stopped. And you just got to turn around and leave. But if you thoroughly understand what are the 3 to 5 things that company is trying to do in the marketplace, it may be affecting their own internal employees. It may be affecting the industry. It may be affecting their end customers, because then you're going to be able to have a meaningful conversation with that client, because now you're not just dealing with a single myopic approach, and you're being able to really have a meaningful conversation with that executive. And
Right.
They're going to stop and take notice of what you're talking about because you're here to help them.
Right. Yeah. I think the biggest takeaway I have from that, Gordon, is that, you're not just grasping at straws, right? And seeing what, or throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what sticks. You're being very intentional. I think customers appreciate that too, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you go in and not only you understand what they're specifically trying to achieve, but you're coming up with new ideas around how they can do it, and they're not wasting their time, right? Basically,
You're exactly right. When I was a junior account executive and I went and talked to a client, the last thing they want to hear is, what keeps you up at night? Or tell me about your business. Or what are your priorities this week or this month or this quarter? I've had some say, I don't have time to educate you on my business, and just shut me off. And then I'm stopped. So we really, as account executives, if we're really going to try to make an impact in that customer's life, we got to do the homework and the research. And we're like the doctor who's trying to figure out what that patient is struggling with. And we have to read and understand the symptoms for that illness that patient has. And then we can prescribe the right prognosis and treatment for that patient.
100%. Eddie, I know you dropped, but you're back
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
What were you talking about?
I'll segue right where Gordon just left off, the doctor parallel, and I'll just add, customers like doctors with good bedside manner, in terms of connecting with them with the right knowledge. I mentioned in my intro, I'm in the retail space, so when I come to a customer and I'm trying to sell them on a technology or a cloud provider such as Azure or AWS or what have you, they want to know that you know their business, that you're connected, that you have insights, that you can help them. And the BDN helps you to do that by gaining insights into their business and connecting it end to end to a technology. And that technology may not necessarily be what you think it is. It's really agnostic. The technology at the end doesn't matter. It's really the business alignment and the outcome that the customer is looking for.
I love it. Thank you for that, Eddie. And I can't emphasize enough, right? Like how important it is to not lead with the solution, right? Which we see happen so many times, right? And having a discussion around needs first, especially when you're educated about it, what that does in terms of building credibility. Bedside manners, like you said, is a great way to explain why it's important kind of to do this work. And so with that, let's maybe talk about like what is a BDN? We talk a lot about it, but let's kind of maybe break it down real quick. And so with that, let me just kind of start off with a quick points, and Gordon and Eddie, feel free to jump in as you like. So the Benefits Dependency Network actually comes from the School of Management in Cranfield, in England, and this was actually developed as a means to basically understand what is it about projects that don't fail, but what's the difference between projects where the customer realizes value versus the ones that don't. And so it was a research activity that actually took place. And upon doing this research, what was found is that organizations that actually keep and manage benefits. So it's not just about project completion, like did this get installed? Did this get integrated? But did we actually achieve the value or the benefit that we were looking to achieve when we went down this path? Were exponentially higher in terms of realizing that value. And so the Benefits Dependency Network became a way to decompose the business strategy of an organization, which we'll talk about what those elements are, and then hyper-focusing on the benefit and then associating that with IT projects to do a few things. So number one, when you create a BDN, it is a snapshot in time. It's what's going on in that organization in that moment. And the reason why you want to bring that up or call that out is because things change constantly. Priorities will shift. Projects will get completed. Benefits will be realized. And so it's important when you actually build a BDN that it's not the last version. It's something that should be updated, in my view, at least quarterly, or at least visited quarterly. Gordon and Ed, any thoughts from your side around the frequency of? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, in all disclosure, as Jamal said, I taught him, and he taught others. I also was taught by a gentleman by the name of Martin Sykes, who is from the UK. He introduced the Benefits Dependency Network to me years ago, and today he's a storyteller. And in the end, this is really telling a story. The Benefits Dependent Network is really a cause and effect diagram. It allows you to understand why and what and who and how. It allows you to get to the value, the benefit. Your value chains are big today. So it enables you to connect the dots, not just focused on technology, but connecting with your business decision maker, that you are connected with them and their business journey.
Right. Every company has a limited amount of resources. And like showing here, it could be time, it could be human, could be capital or working capital. And so you have to prioritize how you're going to use those resources so you get the greatest return. And how many times have we seen situations where companies have not been good stewards of their resources? And at the end of the day, they didn't see the value for money that they invested. And unless you can visualize how that is going to be effectively, put in place, you're not going to get the correct results. So this is extremely important. and it gives you that visual picture of how you're going to achieve that.
Wonderful. Yeah. Thank you so much for that, Gordon. So I think that's a great segue into, I think the topic around like how we think it can be used. Now, one thing that I'd love to hear from both of you, given that Gordon, you're focusing on sales, Eddie, you have a service delivery background, but in your mind, what is the best context for leveraging a BDN?
Well, I think the first thing to do is you start by, you're getting that buy-in from that business executive, and it allows them to be able to start in their own mind. They're already removing some of those obstacles because you're giving them a path forward, and you're allowing them to see how do they get to where they want it, that desired result. Because how many times are there bonuses and the number of stock options they're going to get, and their whole compensation plan is based on how they're achieving certain business objectives at the end of the day. And if you can't help them do that, you're not going to get the same level of respect and become that trusted advisor in the minds of those executives.
100%.
And I'll pick up right there, Gordon, on helping a customer. They've obviously invited you to the table because they're in need of help. Table stakes are that their business, their industry. You've done your homework on them. So the customer is looking for help. How do I implement this set of priorities in a timely fashion within budget? So they're looking for help, and the BDN is a great structure to put it all together and draw the traceability, draw the business outcomes to a technology stack, if you will. So it's an easy framework for them to follow, and you can do it with a small set of people, or you can do it with a very large set of people to gain alignment.
Yeah, I love that. And so we've been talking a lot about why you should use it, how it can be used. Let's maybe kind of get into what are the different elements of a BDN. Gordon, you want to kind of lead us off here?
Yeah. So the first thing that we look at are those business drivers, and every annual report has at least 2 or 3, and some are very very succinctly described, and some are kind of buried into the narrative of that annual report. It may be then not just in the annual report, it may be just the narrative that CFO or CEO gives to an analyst conference that they may have, and you may get the written transcript of that conference and be able to say, and they're going to say, our 3 objectives for this year are sustainability and diversification, and we're going to introduce 3 new products, and we're going to go into this industry or this market or this geographic location. Then you know right away what they're going to do. And then they turn around and they go, okay, the objectives that we're going to achieve, we're going to invest, and these are the reasons why we're going to do it. And so you got to put yourself in their position as they are articulating this to the market.
100%. And one key thing, and I want to get your thoughts on this too, Eddie, but so on the driver side, there's 2 types of drivers. There's internal and there's external drivers. Okay. A great example of an external driver that everybody experienced was COVID, the pandemic. Okay. It's something that's happening in the environment that is forcing some type of change or the business to do something. An internal driver could just be a goal. Like, hey, like Gordon said, we want to reduce non-performing assets. We want to figure out a way to move into this market. And so based on that goal, you then get into the investments that are being made to achieve that objective, which Gordon also kind of touched on a little bit as well. Eddie, any additional thoughts on your side around the why, the goals and objectives, and how to find them?
Yeah, I mean, you want to make sure, like Gordon mentioned, you have objectives that come out of the 10K. One of the things that I've noticed is, depending on the business decision makers you're meeting at, yeah, if you're meeting with the CIO, CXO level, they're going to want to talk to 10K. But then you start to meet with some of the business line leaders, and they get more specific. So they may have leveled down. So you may have to adjust, and the tooling does allow you to do this, adjust and place in their specific business outcomes and drivers that they're looking for. So be ready to take it down a level based on your audience.
Yeah, and I love that how Eddie's basically, kind of framing that. You have the goal, you have the specific investment objectives. Then let's talk about the benefits or the outcomes, right? So the benefits is an advantage that's being created on the behalf of a person or a group of people, right? So what is, at the end of the day, what are they getting out of it? And the one thing I wanted to touch on the benefit side is that there's 4 types of benefits as it relates to the Cranefield model. There's observable, measurable, quantifiable, and financial. Not every benefit has to be financial in nature. And that is one, I'd say, pitfall that a lot of sellers make, thinking that as I build a value proposition, everything has to talk about either making money or saving money, reducing cost. And it's not about that. Some outcomes could be things like, growing our brand. It could be, hey, we want to increase collaboration within the organization, right? And so knowing that level of benefit, which is also in the 10K, is really important. And then the last couple of elements I'm going to touch on are business changes or campaigns, and enabling changes or projects. So
I'll give you an example of where those non-financial benefits are. So as an example of COVID, companies had to work with a remote workforce. And I had a client who had they worked with the government. So everybody, it was very secure, and there was concerns about letting that data outside of their 4 walls of the organization, literal 4 walls of an office. Well, now you had people that were working from their bedroom or dining room or living room on a laptop. And how do we effectively make sure that that worker is still productive, secure, and meeting the requirements of the government entity that they're serving? And that changed the whole perspective, and companies had to turn on a dime and change the way they do business. So instead of building brick and mortar offices, they were now creating virtual businesses within the organization. So you can't just look at the financial aspect of it, like you said, Jamal.
Yeah, I'll add some additional color to that. A long while ago, I worked with a government agency, criminal investigation division within the IRS division. And, they were ironically not looking to save money. Money was not at the top of their list in terms of cost savings or revenue. They were looking for more effectiveness, more efficiency. And yeah, security was really big, hardening the security in their technology. So it's not always all about the bottom line dollar. It could be effectiveness, efficiency, and some other anecdotal effect, security being one.
Awesome. And so I think from here, it's interesting. This is probably the first time you're seeing this, but to put it all together, one thing I will also call out is that there can be a one-to-many relationship between a business goal and an investment objective. And what I mean by that is that you can have a single business goal, which you can see here, right? But it can have multiple investments that you're making to achieve that goal. So it doesn't have to be a one-to-one relationship. It can be a one-to-many relationship. Additionally, when we start talking about the investments, They could also be a one-to-many relationship between an investment and the outcomes they're trying to achieve. So whenever you see like a subway map where it's like one across the board, here's the goal, here's the investment, here's the outcome, here's the change, here's the projects, that's highly unrealistic. That doesn't happen. Okay. Mm-hmm. What typically happens is that you have multiple investments that maybe accrue to a goal. You have multiple outcomes that might be seen as wanting to be achieved. And then you can have one-to-many relationship between a benefit and the business changes that the organization has to achieve or has to make to achieve that outcome. Now, one thing I'll just kind of quickly point out here that the BDN or the Greenfield Benefits Dependency Network really, really harps on is that no benefit can be realized without doing one of three things. You must start doing something, you must stop doing something, or you must improve on doing something. That is a really, really important point to drive home. And as a seller, it also becomes the impetus on why your customer should purchase from you, right? Or to do some type of business for you. You can't achieve a benefit by doing nothing, okay? You must start doing something, stop doing something, or improve on doing something. And that's what the business change, or what you typically see as called a campaign, right? And then within a campaign, you can also have a one-to-many relationship between a campaign and a project or an enabling change, okay? The thing that you're not seeing here are the products, but we'll show you what that is here in a second. But again, you can kind of see how doing this work, you start creating this blueprint around what's happening within the organization. It becomes a fantastic way to articulate the business strategy of the most complex organizations or the most simple organizations into this view. Eddie, Gory, anything I left out at all?
No, you kind of hit it on the head.
We covered it.
Okay, very cool. So in the interest of time, I think what we want to do is just talk about one more thing, which is, okay, we want to build this BDN. Where can we get the information to find or to populate the BDN? Thoughts from you, Gordon, Eddie?
Yeah, so like I've said before, the 10K is kind of like the Bible. You know, it is the gold standard. I mean, there are certain requirements and certain information that a publicly traded company is required to put into the 10K. And if they falsify that information, there are serious ramifications if they do. So you know that if something is specified in the 10K, that CFO and CEO has put their personal signature on that document to make sure that it's timely, accurate, and meaningful. So when you start there, you're able to get a pretty good perspective of what that company is telling the market they're planning on doing and why they're doing it and what they're investing in order to achieve those results. So that's a great place to start. Other documents can validate and substantiate what's in the 10K and the narrative that you may read in an annual report or an interview by an analyst will give you more context of some material in there, but let's start with the 10K.
Yeah, very good. One thing I'll just quickly touch on, in addition to what Gordon shared about the 10K and the annual report, there's actually two separate documents. Typically, an annual report will have let's call it like a nice presentation, the first 10 slides, which is kind of slick, right? Graphics and a letter from the CEO. Whereas a 10K will also have strategic business information, but also emphasizes the financial information for that company. Now, earlier we talked about the fact that a 10K, a BDN is a snapshot in time. Well, a 10K is only released once a year. A 10Q is released quarterly. So based on where your customer is in their calendar year, it is really important to not only look at the 10K, but also look at the 10Q for the latest information. And so once you develop a 10K or a BDN from a 10K, we recommend that as 10Qs are released, that you update that BDN. Now, there are other, a whole slew of other documents I'm not going to get into too much, but a few I do want to call out. The Form 8K is also a really great document because basically it tells you any major changes of ownership or stakeholders that are changing within the company. Proxy statements are actually also really good to understand who in the organization owns a benefit, how much they're paid, key individuals that may exist within the environment that you need to connect with. And then Forms 3, 4, and 5 are really important because if a organization is changing ownership, it's being bought out, mergers and acquisitions, really great information in there as well. I won't go through the rest, but there's, as you can imagine, a lot of information. And one thing I'll just kind of ask maybe Eddie and Gordon, as you're looking through this information, typically if you're doing this by hand, how long does it typically take?
I was just going to say, I applaud Jamal, you and team for putting it all together and making it easy. Because as a practitioner, as a architect, enterprise architect, you take weeks, if not a month, to prepare to go in and work with a customer if you don't have all of these artifacts in a centralized location. So I applaud you for doing this work.
Yeah, it's a big investment. And that's probably the biggest obstacle why salespeople don't, because, most salespeople are pretty ADHD. It's hard for them to stay focused. Yeah.
They have hours.
Yeah, they're a microwave generation. They want that thing done quick and easy, and reading a 10K and a 10Q on a regular basis it's painful for these guys.
Yeah. And so what we want to do next actually is show an example of how you can do an analysis of these documents in real time, leveraging some tooling that we've developed at Sales Advantage. And so with that, just give me a second here. I'm going to share my window and walk through a tool that we've developed that leverages machine learning to basically automate the analysis of these documents. Now, can you do this manually? You absolutely can. Do we recommend it? Probably not. Because again, just going through a document, pulling information from it, and populating a PowerPoint, incredibly time consuming. But can it be done? Absolutely. Now, the reason why we built this tool is because, Gordon, Eddie, and I, we did this. This was our main purpose, doing this type of work. And we were really frustrated with the fact that there really wasn't anything that kind of helped organize and accelerate in this work. And so what I'm sharing with you is the prototype or the working prototype of what we refer to as the account value mapping platform. We actually have a closed beta we're running right now with a completely new version, which is going to be released here in a few weeks. And we'll talk more about that here in just a second. But this is the working prototype. And the way it basically works is any company that you want to analyze, whether it's public or private, you can put through this tool. And so let me just touch on that really quickly, actually. So if you have a publicly traded company that you're looking to analyze, what you can do is, let's just do like Ford Motor Company. You can type in the name here. We can search it. And effectively what we've done is we've connected to the SEC database, and we have access to every public filing that every publicly traded company has submitted to the SEC for the last 16 years. And so once we identify the company, here's Ford Motor Company, you can click on filings, and you can see all the different filings that you can analyze. Now, you can see the latest one is the 10Q, but we're going to go ahead and select the 10K for the tool to analyze. Now, The reason why we're doing that is because we want the most information possible to start. But then what we're going to do is, if we wanted to, also look at a 10Q and then input or bring in those additional insights to the BDN that we're looking for. So with that, let me do it again. Okay, so what's happening right now is the tool is connected to the SEC database. In real time, it is downloading the latest annual report, and the machine learning solution is actually categorizing the entire document and putting it against those elements that we talked about earlier: business goals, the investment objectives, the business changes, and enabling changes, and benefits, obviously. So here is an example of the return information. And so what we have to do effectively is we can very quickly just look at the results. So here it says, in 2021, our wholesale segment declined 6%. This is a driver. We're going to hit thumbs up on that. We're going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit more and see what else we can find. The automotive segment predominantly includes the sale of Ford Lincoln vehicles. So it tells you how the company functions. We're going to go ahead and select that. In addition to our product, we sell to our dealerships for retail. This is another driver. Talk about wholesale unit volumes. We'll go ahead and click that. Okay. Margin of profit each sold vehicle, which in turn is affected by many factors, such as market factors, is telling you how their business operates. So here you can see their competitive position, all their goals. Over here, look at some of the investments we're making. Talk about annuity contracts. It's talking about over the last, they've been declining in revenue. So this is actually an outcome. So I'm going to go ahead and hit that and then move it into an outcome. Okay. It tells you what changes they're making. So we previously announced our plan for the global redesign of our business. So this is a business change. I'm going to hit that and put this as a business change. I'm not going to go through all of these, but very quickly just show you kind of the information you get back and how quickly you can interact with it. Now, once you effectively hit thumbs up on all the different elements, if you don't have enough, you can actually also look for keywords. So like I can type in strategy, and it'll tell you everywhere in the document where the word strategy comes up that you may want to include. Same thing with investments and so on. But we'll just go ahead and save this really quickly. And once it saves, what we can then do is go into the actual map itself. And we can import these insights into the map. So here's us going into the map. We're going to start a new map. And just like we showed you in the other, during the presentation, you can go in here, if you know the customer's driver, you can add that manually if you like, the objectives, the benefits. But since we have the insights, we're going to go ahead and import the insights by clicking this. And let's go ahead and click the insights we just saved. And so now what we can do is pull in the goals of the company, the investment objectives, the benefits, the changes, the enabling changes. And then lastly, we can even type in our offerings. So what that allows us to do is, and I'll go ahead and just type in, let's just do IBM data and analytics, right? And let's just make this, let's say, new production plan, okay? Now what this allows us to do, just like we showed, is you can start connecting the dots between the goals, the objectives, the benefits, the changes the organization has to make to achieve those benefits, the projects, and then finally to your offerings. And so now you have the ability to articulate the value that your organization can create for your customers, and you'll be able to share this with your team and even with the customer so they can basically comment on it if they like. The new version of the tool is actually also going to have something called the value proposition generator, which effectively allows you to, once you create all these linkages, press a button and it will create a statement about the organization's goals, the investments they're making, the value you're creating into a nice, concise document, into a statement, which you can then use to put into CRM, to build a business case, share with the customer, to validate, so forth and so on. Okay. So that was just a very quick view around the BDN and how it's created. Gordon, Eddie, anything else you want to call out in terms of what you can do with the tool, how you can leverage it, or what you'd like to see it do?
What I would say, based on my experience with doing BDNs manually and based on what you have just shown us, you're taking days or weeks and you're shrinking it down to hours or less, which is tremendous in terms of being rapid with the customer, and that's what they're like.
Yeah, what I'm seeing here is the value of, if you're doing it manually, you're going to naturally kind of just focus on the basics because you just don't have the investment of time or capability to include everything. And therefore, you may miss a very important driver or objective because you just were trying to rush it through it. Where this allows you to be able to pull this in and have a very comprehensive view, as well as you may be able to now start segmenting this by line of business or by geography. And because you have, with these larger companies, you have executives of a line of business for the United States or for a product line that buyer has a different budget and a different objectives for a particular product line than someone else. Let's look at, someone like a Johnson & Johnson or some consumer products company like Procter & Gamble. They have product segments that go on and on and on. Well, it's very difficult to create a manual BDN for each individual group. Whereas this way, now you can start slicing and dicing this thing multiple ways and then be able to roll it up and be able to see it and validate it. So this is extremely valuable because your buyers, you have different buyers for different things. And this becomes a very impactful tool as you move forward.
And one thing I'll just kind of add from my experience is that, Gordon and I, we tried to teach sellers how to do this en masse. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is you'll get responses like, "Oh yeah, this is great. I get it. I'm going to use it." And then what happens is as soon as they're done with the training, they go back to their offices. Nobody picks it up again because there is a high barrier of entry in doing the work, the tooling required. And so our goal through the ABM platform is to reduce that barrier, both in terms of how much effort it takes, and we put it on rails. We put the process on rails so that you can take a fairly novice seller and be like, "Look, here's step 1, 2, and 3 you got to do. You got to put in the work, but it's on rails now." And it greatly reduces the amount of effort that it takes and ultimately gets you the best possible outcome as you're engaging with your customer. Help build credibility, identify solutions, right? Have rapport around their business and their needs.
Yeah, I had a group come to me just a couple of weeks ago and they asked me, they said, "Gordon, you've been doing this for a long time. You sell to people on a regular basis. How do you ascertain what their motives are?" And unless you're intimately familiar with that person, they're not going to tell you what their motives are. But if you can use the BDN to ascertain what those business drivers are, then you can kind of validate what their emotional motivations are. Because most people buy emotionally for emotional reasons, and then they go back and they try to create the logical data to support their emotional decision.
Right.
And what you're doing is trying to remove some of that emotional aspect of it and give them what that logical reason that they need to make this decision. Because it's like you said a few minutes ago, not making a decision, you've made a choice of not making a decision, and therefore you're not going to get anything. And I was talking to a company, they're one of the, if I mentioned their name and who they sell to, you'd know who they were. And they were paralyzed because they were analyzing this thing too far, and they couldn't make a decision because they couldn't see the value in what they were trying to achieve. And it's not like they didn't have the money to invest. They just couldn't get their hands around to make a decision. And it wasn't the field people. It was the executives up here that controlled the budget and controlled the signature on the contract that we were trying to incorporate. So this is extremely valuable, and it allows you to be able to cut through the minutia of the sales cycle.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Gordon. And, I just want to kind of close just by saying that, this is not an easy process if you're trying to do it manually, like Gordon was mentioned, like Eddie mentioned. However, if it becomes, what's the word I'm looking for? If it becomes democratized, if it becomes something that's so easy to do that that it becomes more accessible, your customers will appreciate it as well. And I genuinely believe that when you put your customers' priorities first, good things will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Good things will happen. And this is a great tool to enable not only putting your customers first, right, but also bringing the entire sales teams, marketing team, service teams along for the journey as well. Be able to tell that story. And so, Eddie, you're here. I get like emotional, right? Because we started this, I don't know how many years ago, right? And we tried every permutation of trying to get this out. And it's just, you always hit that barrier. It's like, who's willing to put in that work? And I feel like this is something that, again, with your guidance and your teaching, basically, that allows us to kind of get here today and hopefully put this in the hands of more people, so that they can, obviously, drive greater impact with their customers as well. So with that, I want to just leave on a quick note and just say, Gordon, Ed, thank you so much for being here today. I know that both of you guys are so passionate about this. We are genuinely at Sales Advantage trying to build a community around business strategy analysis. We wholeheartedly believe that although most sales organizations are not very collaborative in that respect around this topic, we think that this could be a way to make people talk about prioritizing customer needs and having an approach to do it in a very meaningful and effective way. And so we're going to do more events like this. And for those that are watching this, we actually do have a beta for the Account Value Map platform. It's kicking off here in the next few weeks. You'll get access to the brand new version, which has been completely redesigned to be more intuitive, to be more functional. We have a value prop generator that we're going to be shipping as well as team collaboration, customer sharing, and a whole slew of other features as well. And so if you're interested in joining or getting access to the beta, we'll send a link. You can sign up through that. But with that, any last thoughts, Gordon and Eddie, as we look to close?
No, it was my honor and privilege to be part of this discussion. I think all sellers are trying to figure out a way to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. And there's a number of ways of doing that. And I think this kind of rises to the top of that list of how do you differentiate yourself with the competition. So if you're not doing it, you're going to be a me too. And if you are doing it, your customers will recognize and differentiate you from the competition immediately.
Thank you, Gordon and Jamal. And I'll just say simply, it's a pleasure to be with these esteemed gentlemen and have worked with this. And it's also in the theme of automation. We've taken a manual process and we've automated a causality tool, which is only going to be valuable to the industry. So thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank
Thanks.
you, Gordon. Hey, enjoy the rest of your days, everybody. Have a great weekend. We got Thanksgiving coming up here next week. Thank you again. My heart is so full. I can't wait to hopefully schedule excellence, do this again in some other capacity, other topic. But with that, have a great day, everybody. Thank you for joining, and we will talk to you soon.
Yeah. Bye now.
Goodbye.
Take care.